Well, let's get back to our earlier story of the breaking news where the court has granted the EFCC request to remand former Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Mohammed Aduke, in custody for 14 days. We have joining us via Skype a human rights lawyer, Mr. Wale Ugunade. He joins us. Thank you so much for joining us at this time. Looking at this breaking story right now, a victory for the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. But first, let's get your reactions to the handling of the case when you saw that he was held in custody for about 5 weeks in the UAE following his arrest on the request of the Nigerian government. There's also the argument or unclarity that the government, and that's Nigeria, didn't file for his extradition. His lawyer said there was no existing arrest warrant in which Interpol's action was based. What do you make of how, the country is handling that case?
Well, I'm not sure was that question actually meant for me, Millicent?
Oh, with all due respect, I'm just told that we actually have Ken Okolubo on via Skype. Apologies for that. Sorry about the mix-up. But there is a breaking story which we just got, and this is, of course, talking about the government's anti-corruption fight, and that is successful. The EFCC request to remand the former Attorney General of the Federation in custody for 14 days. Now, his lawyers, and that's, of course, headed by Mr. Mike Ezekome, has talked about how this appears to be a media trial. He's hoping that this isn't the case and says that his client should be given fair hearing. What's your thought on the way the government is handling this matter?
The truth about it is that they have gone to court, which is the right thing to do. Nobody is meant to be held for 24 hours without being charged to court. And since the government has gone to court to ask for an extension of time with which to remand him, it might seem right. But also, one has always kicked against the situation of asking for more time. We all know that this Aduke's case has been a celebrated case, which also has had its international dimension. We know that there are cases that have been instituted even by the government of Italy as regards this Malabo crisis. The EFCC has been on this investigation for more than 2 years. So why do you now have to hold the man further? We expect the EFCC should have concluded their investigations, and they are supposed to have charged the man to court on a day like this because they have been asking for his release. So asking for more time clearly shows that they are going by the way of holding forth to look for more evidence, which I don't think is right. But at least they have gone to court to ask, and I hope they keep to the mandated days that the courts would have given to them for the period of investigation.
What Nigeria's, of course, current Attorney General of the Federation, Minister of Justice, has been saying, reading the federal government's scorecard on the anti-corruption fight. He talked about, said the fight against corruption is comprehensive and dispassionate. Are you convinced that, the fight is devoid of any political or ethnic sentiment or inclination, as the AGF has said?
We have always felt, especially from the angle of my party, that the fight against corruption has been quite selective. Selective in the sense that there are very celebrated members of the administration who have been indicted for corruption, and we haven't seen their cases move far. Babache Lawal, for example, even the former head of service, we haven't heard anything about her case. Don't forget that Joliniame, Dariye, and Orji Zokalu, their matters were charged to court as at the time when PDP was in power. They only concluded at the time of this administration. Yes, we all abhor corruption, but a case where some people are seen as sacred cows are the things that we have always kicked against. 22 governors are under investigation. Why don't we know the names of the 22 governors? Those are either being investigated or being or going through trial right now. It's not enough to just make such sweeping statements. If the Attorney General is convinced that these cases will be seen to a conclusion, he should have named the names of those governors who are under investigation. And let's not have this impression that we have always had that some of these cases are being used to blackmail such governors into whipping them into line for one reason or the other. But after all said and done, to a large extent, the EFCC has done commendably well, but we still see it's not yet to Hulu. That's my understanding.
Transparency International, they talked about, they said Nigeria isn't amongst the countries that are decliners, but rather countries to watch. They've talked about promising political developments in the anti-corruption fight. And they also spoke about President Buhari taking a number of positive steps, such as the establishment of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, the framework in areas like public procurement, asset declaration, the TSA, IP's development of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, and that, these are some of the efforts, promising efforts of this administration.
Well, you can't take it away from this administration. In terms of the Treasury single account, that has been quite commendable. But don't also forget that the Treasury single account was established at the time of the PDP government. But not to play politics there. The Presidential Advisory Council Against Corruption has been a case where Sage has made it look more one-sided. He speaks more of those he seems to have his personal opinion against. But the members like Femi Odekule and others have been quite objective. When you have a presidential committee, we need one that is impartial. We need one that is going to see things objectively, and not one that is going to see things from a myopic perspective. The anti-corruption fight is one of the main mantras that this administration used in community fight in 2016. And we want to see more of the people who are associated with this government be thrown into jail. Then we can be convinced that this anti-corruption fight is real.
All right, I'm just being told that we have Mr. Daniel Bwala, a legal practitioner, members of the All Progressives Congress, who's joined us in our Abuja studios. We'd like to welcome you and quickly ask you, institutions involved in the fight, the AFCC from 2015 to September 2019 has convicted over 1,000 persons involved in corruption-related offences. That's coming from the Attorney General of the Federation. But you also know we've been called fantastically corrupt by a former UK Prime Minister. When you look at these numbers, do they send a message to you that we're making progress?
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, I think we are making progress in the sense that some of the convictions are quite obvious and are in the public domain, especially the convictions relating to ex-governors, which in my view are the main focus of the commission. I think we can do better as a commission by ensuring that we stretch the effort. Like I like the point that the Honorable Attorney General said, the effort in pursuing the former governors, because that is the essence of EFCC as against mumbling up Yahoo boys or advance fee fraud and then counting them as part of the success story. Most of the convictions of the advance fee fraud through the cyber internet are on plea bargain. So it is not as if you have gone to trial and the full trial and you're able to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt. So I want us to separate that so we don't get carried away with the success of the story, and let's focus more on the governors, on the former public office holders, because that is our money. Let's focus on the money that is leaving the country because people looted it, as against money coming into the country which does not in any way affect the economy of the country. That is not to say that we should slow our fight against the advance fee fraud, but I mean we should not be distracted by the Yahoo boys to take our eyes off the fundamentals, which is public office holders in Nigeria that looted the treasury of this country. All
right, we need to take a break now. We'll come back to continue and wrap up this discussion. Still to come as well on the program, President Buhari is taking a stand on the Niger Delta Development Commission's leadership crisis, announcing a reconstitution of the Senate Screen Board. We'll bring you details when we return. In continuing our discussion for more perspectives into the federal government's anti-corruption fight, we've been talking to Mr. Ken Okolugbo of the People's Democratic Party, who's joined us via Skype, and also Mr. Daniel Bwala from our Abuja studios. Thank you for your patience. Now, this question goes to you, Mr. Bwala, before I come back to Mr. Okolugbo. And Mr. Bwala, it is that Mr. Okolugbo is pretty suspicious. He says he's not sure that the fight is devoid of political or ethnic sentiments. And I mean, when you look at what Transparency International has talked about, such as weak institutions, political rights and free media, that these are some of the things that threaten the anti-corruption fight. When you also look at some of the bills that have been brought before the National Assembly, like the anti-hate speech bill or the social media bill, which are threats to independent media, as some have also said, how should Nigerians react?
Well, the hate speech bill, I'm glad to let you know that I'm one of the stakeholders that have been killing it. It will go nowhere because it's a bill that emanated from an individual. It is not the position of the party, and to the best of my knowledge, it's not the position of the government. But I know that the conversation is ongoing as to how we can control, how we can find a way of holding people to account who use social media platforms to destroy the lives and the character of people. I mean, it's a conversation that is ongoing all over the world. In France, in July this year and later in September, the issue came up. The problem they are having is how they can hold the communication service providers accountable for keeping online whatever obscene picture that is put there. But Okolugbo's point as against the fight against corruption is neither here nor there. But it's natural when a government comes to power, the government will probe the government that existed before it. And if you're going to probe the previous government, most of the people are going to be in the opposition. But that is not to say that in this government we have not seen the fight. You recall most recently, a governor in the party who is a principal officer in the Senate was convicted and sent to prison. And before him, 2 other governors from the parties were convicted. This is without prejudice to ministers and other public officers. So we are not distracted by the cry of PDP, the foul cry of PDP. We are focused on the fight against corruption, and I like the position of the Attorney General, more focused on pursuing the former governors, because if you bring all the Yahoo boys and the money they stole combined, it will not be up to the money allegedly stolen by 2 governors. So we will not be distracted. We will focus on what is needful. We will continue the fight, and as we move, we keep improving, because even in America, they improve every day. Right. So as some of these people who come on TV, especially people who happen to be in the past government, they give you stories about good governance, anti-corruption and the rest. When they had the opportunity, what did they do? They looted the treasury. So we are focused and we're not distracted, and we'll continue to work and improve on what we're doing. And we welcome criticism from anybody who feels one way or the other this government is not doing well. The government will improve upon it and will move. The government is by no means assuming that it is perfect.
Let's go back to Ken, and that is your thoughts. Do you think special courts for corruption cases are a solution? Should the immunity clause for serving governors be lifted? What do you think we should be doing to fight the corruption?
He's only trying to maintain the position of his party. Maybe he didn't follow the program when I started. I clearly said that those corruption cases were started under PDP. And the fact that today those governors are in prison, he's a lawyer. He knows that cases do not just appear from the sky. There are processes that were filed before now. There are charges that were filed and they were not changed. The charges were not changed. So who brought the AGL to limelight? It was the former government of Jonathan. That is what abridged the timeline for criminal trials. If not for that, today we would have still had 10 years or 20 years of trial of the likes of Ojuzokalu, Dolinyame, and Dariye. I mean, we shouldn't try to be sentimental here. Where is Babachela? Where is the former head of service? Where are they today? What has their trial come up to? Ojuzokalu is just a pawn in the chess game. That's what I believe. I want to be convinced that those who have actually been accused of crime, look at the report of Transparency International. It has rated us so poorly. I'm not saying Magu is not fighting. Magu is someone I know personally even before he became the AFCC chairman, and I know what he stands for. And so I hate to want to try to condemn his work or his actions, having known him so closely. I'm only trying to be factual here. The war has been such that has not been all-encompassing. That's what I'm saying.
All right, we'd like to thank you, gentlemen. This is where we'd like to draw the curtain, but this is definitely an issue we'll keep talking about. Many thanks, Mr. Ken Okolowo of the People's Democratic Party and Mr. Daniel Wala of the All Progressives Congress, also a legal practitioner. Thank you both for joining us at this time.